I mean, as far as I go, I'm past the point of no return when it comes to being an outcast and all of that. Personally, I took a vow of honesty, really ventured in the spiritual world, kind of going out of the body, without getting too crazy.
What do you think we humans are capable of?
I think from a psychological perspective, it's really important for us to understand why we are the way we are, understanding and knowing that a lot of past experiences and traumas shape up our personality. But it's also really important to know when we are acting authentically and when we are just responding to our traumas.
You usually talk about how we are capable of so much more and how we possess power. What do you think that power is and how can we utilize it better?
I think it's important for a person to act authentically rather than act out their trauma. A lot of our personalities is based on past experiences, but some are trauma-based. And knowing thyself and getting to know oneself more to act more authentically rather than just be a victim to unconscious patterns that are based in traumas. A lot of my paintings and my practice thematically nowadays has been the kind of marriage between the brain and the heart. I think a lot of the times we act with our mind and not necessarily take into account the heart. So the heart and mind can also be a symbol for the mental world and the spiritual world. So it's important to be cerebrally powerful and kind of think about things, but also bring back the emotional/spiritual side of things.
How do you think we can learn and know more about oneself?
For me, a good exercise to know myself is journaling. I've been journaling for a few years, and the type of journaling I do is stream of consciousness. So I'll just write and allow my hand to guide me and just, blabber anything. I'd give myself a framework, either 2 pages or 20 minutes. And I would just write whatever comes to mind. It would be, even if I have nothing to say, I'd talk about yesterday I had dinner or whatever, blah, 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 I don't like, da, 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 until something comes out. And the way I write is, I don't reread my journals, and I don't expect anyone else to read them. So I'm not being overly philosophical, acting like Marcus Aurelius or something like that. So that's a good way to kind of get closer to how we feel and what we're thinking about. Also, it's important to disentangle oneself from societal framework. It's a lot of the way we think is predicated on social programming, social societal programming, the TV we watch, the ideas we get from music and stuff like that. So it's important to, I personally try to think about myself outside of the context I am in, just to know myself a little deeper.
So how well do you think you know yourself?
It's a constant journey of trying to get closer to myself and my authentic expression. I think intuition plays a major role in knowing oneself. The ancient Greeks called the intuition the daemon, and it's the anthropomorphization of the intuition. So anthropomorphization is giving human characteristics to something non-human. So they would interact with their intuition as a being within them, have formal one-to-one conversations with them, and so on. So there's a quote by Littlefoot's mother from Land Before Her Time. Listen to your heart, Littlefoot. It whispers, so listen closely.
Sometimes tapping into too much of who you are can lead to losing touch with society and being deemed an outcast. Do you think that can be awkward?
I mean, as far as I go, I'm past the point of no return when it comes to being an outcast and all of that. I think it is important for a person to separate themselves from, but separate themselves from society to kind of know themselves on a deeper level. But also, it is healthy to have a bit of discernment when it comes to societal expectations and implement oneself in the pockets that they want to be in.
You mentioned that you had an injury recently, that you healed yourself using your mind.
Yes, esoteric surgery. I think it's very, I think it's, I injured my knee while asleep, woke up, told myself that I'd heal myself in 2 weeks. So I would, The way I do this is I would look at an anatomical diagram of the place where I have an issue, and that in this case it was the knee. So I would study what the knee looks like, where the muscles are, where the bones are, and I'd find the specific part that is bothering me, and I'd focus attention on that. So rather than just doing movement practices, stretching and whatever, and kind of loading off the gym and whatever and doing all of these things, but before bed I would consciously think about that part and kind of send healing thoughts. I would also imagine the part in my knee being fixed by little minions and stuff like that. And based on my personal experience, I was able to do it in 2 weeks.
And it worked.
And it worked for me, yep.
And you feel just fine now.
Fantastic.
Have you shared this way of healing to others, and have they tried it?
Yeah, I mean, I've had conversations with this about people, and surely it's important to have some discernment, and if it's a big injury, kind of go to a doctor or whatever. I personally wouldn't want to. I would like to do it on my own. I've also fostered a mind-body connection when it comes to bodybuilding and whatever, so I know how to move every part of my body and kind of send kind of the needed physical signals to move or flex or excite that part of the body. But it goes the same way. If you focus long enough on the top bit of your finger, you'll start feeling the pulse there. And the reason why is because you're sending your attention there, and also with that attention you can do some work, you can do some healing, you can do some sending love, sending inspiration, whatever it may be, to strengthen that part of oneself.
People usually adapt new thinking or philosophies after experiencing pain or trauma. What made you switch to a new way of thinking?
Late 2017, I had a near-death experience. I had to do emergency surgery. My intestines were entangled and they were about to explode. And during that time, for 28 hours, I was in agonizing pain, dipping in and out of consciousness. And while doing that, I really ventured in the spiritual world, kind of going out of the body, following the light, and all of those kind of cliches you hear about. And that really opened me up to, on one level, I'm living in the physical world, but I also exist on many other levels.
Wow. What did you see?
During that time, I was not very kind of happy. I was kind of depressive, and it looked very bleak. It looked like a long kind of steel container that was damp and humid and rusty, and there was a light at the end. And a part of me was compelled to walk towards the light, but another part I trusted more asked me to leave what looked like the container, and when I left there was a kind of damp grass pitch. The paintings behind me from my series Suicide and Redemption, these paintings are about that. During that time when I was not very not in a very good place mentally, I decided to make art about it and shed light on the dark parts of my mind. So I was kind of possessed by voices that scared me in the dark. But as soon as I shed light on them and saw the kind of demons in my mind that were scaring me, they weren't very scary in the light. They were just scary in the dark when I couldn't see them. So I think that I'm using that a lot as an example in my life. Whenever I face any mental issue, the solution for me is always shedding light on it and looking at it curiously, being curious about it and looking at it, and then just, it loses its power in the light.
What or who do you think the demons are in our current times that people are unaware of, like pop culture or TV?
Yeah, personally, I try not to watch any TV, no streaming services. I don't listen to any pop music. I think a lot of the popular short TV. So my personal issue was if I'd watch a TV series and get invested in a character, watching like 20, 50 episodes, I would understand all the characters' mannerisms and I would find myself acting the same way. So, And I don't know if we can trust these big conglomerates to kind of, with our psyche, and allow them to program us in a way they see fit. Also, I think about Carl Jung's quote. He said, people don't have ideas, ideas have people. And I think what he was trying to mean about that there are archetypical forces, there are energetic forces that exist in the universe that we can tap into, but they sometimes tap into us. Things like love, hate, anger, whatever it may be, inspiration, and so on. So I think a lot of the times we are possessed by demons or angels when it comes to how we act. And it's also worthwhile to be quiet enough to know thyself and know when you're acting on something, your intuition wants, rather than kind of being possessed by a lyric or an idea or a demonic force that comes through this media.
How do you think we can be possessed by an angel, like by good forces and energy?
Without getting too crazy, all Abrahamic religions talk about angels. A lot of them are known by name. There are about 72 Abrahamic angels, Michael, Jibrail, Uriel, Samael, Metatron, and so on. And a lot of ancient practices were based on kind of interacting with these angels, whether they are real angels or just archetypes for a specific kind of feeling, like courage or victory or learning, and that can be tapped into.
How do you think a person hearing about this for the first time could tap into it or even have a taste of it?
So the formal literature about it is doing research about the specific character and learning its characteristics. The second step would be admiring, kind of like being a fan of it, being a supporter, and then thinking, what would this do in this situation? And then the third step is full-on interacting with it, whether that be through dream, meditation, journaling, an imaginary conversation, until a kind of relationship is made with it, and then that allows that force to pass through oneself.
Do you think your conscious being in constant prayer also helps to connect you to, be it God, a higher being, or angels?
I've been thinking a lot about trance states, and I think prayer is a practice to get into a trance state. A trance state is where we're more in the subconscious mind rather than the conscious mind, and obviously we know that the subconscious mind is much bigger than the conscious mind, and a lot of our life is based on the subconscious mind than it is on the conscious mind. Prayer is a practice to get into a trance, and also meditating on the 99 names of Allah is also an Islamic kind of part of that. Meditating on the Sifat Allah, on Allah's characteristics, so that we can be more in line with that.
I also notice how your art features big pop culture symbols, such as heavy metal, Disney, and superheroes. How are they an inspiration to you, and what kind of connection do you have to those elements?
I really like loaded symbols. I think when I put, if I were to put something like Mickey Mouse, everyone could immediately imagine the voice, imagine the character, imagine what's going with that. If I use like a Disney villain like Scar or something, people understand the ideas associated with it, and it becomes kind of like an archetype. So I like using strong archetypical symbols, whether that be from pop culture or ancient antiquity. A lot of my paintings now, the series I'm working on now is Cosmic Perspective. In this series, I'm doing a lot of research on ancient civilizations and trying to decipher their symbolism, because a picture, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, an archetype is worth 1,000 pictures. So a lot of these symbols, it's not words, it's symbols, but it's not just symbols, it's archetypes as well.
What is your process of creating?
With my series now, Cosmic Perspective, it's a painting style called that I like calling diagram painting. So these paintings are also diagram paintings. They start as digital collages on Photoshop of found images. So recently I've been doing a lot of research on ancient civilizations, finding their symbols and finding their imagery and compiling that in a database. And then I would think of a phrase or a title. So the painting I'm working on now is called Unity Consciousness, the Material World. The purpose of the material world is to gain unity of consciousness. So the masculine and the feminine, the light and the dark, the positive and the negative, bringing that together. So with that phrase, I will compile images and put them together on a digital sketch, which I will then project on corrugated steel, and then I'll paint that.
What do you think we can do to get ahead spiritually?
I think a good place to start is not to take things personally. I think a lot of the times people don't see you as you are, they see you as they are. So and then having an open heart when it comes to that, being forgiving about people kind of, slighting, being slightful or being negative in a specific way, having a little more compassion around that. And then also realizing that everyone is also a reflection of you. So a lot of the times if someone upsets you if someone is acting on their own and their kind of authentic expression bothers you, that's probably an issue with you and not them. Or at least that's how I talk to myself.
The importance of art?
Yeah, art is very important and means a lot to me personally. Art is important for three things, for three main reasons. The first one being art makes us more open-minded. When we look at a piece of art, we automatically agree to open our minds to receive it. And then the second thing is art makes us more sensitive, because when an artist is able to create a small detail that asks us to lean into the painting, that's us being a little more sensitive. And then the third thing being is it's an expression of the intuition. It's an expression of an inner part of ourselves that wants to communicate to other people. So a lot of the art that has touched people, made people cry, made people change their life, change their mind, it's because it comes from the spiritual world into the material world.
For some, pop culture is considered to be art, and a lot of it is based off of or inspired by big artists. Don't you think this can be considered as art?
I think a lot of pop music, just me personally, is propaganda, mind control. It's very rare to find a pop artist that kind of is reflecting on something meaningful. At least I've not come across it. The only kind of pop artist that does that is Michael Jackson, but he's the king of pop. He's not just pop.
Very good. And how about, I believe that a lot of films have a lot of deeper meanings in them. Do you think that some pop culture films do have a lot of it, means a lot of deep meaning because the people behind it or the creators were deep into a sort of like art or philosophy?
Absolutely. I think it's important to, I personally, when I want to watch a movie, I'll see who the director is, but I also see who the producers are. And then kind of, if it's someone like, if it's someone positive, then fantastic. But if not, then not fantastic. But there are definitely a lot of films that hint on important themes that can be helpful for us. But a lot of pop films are what I like to call just like hot trash. Just trashy, nice, dopamine, Fast and Furious, The Rock, and whatever type thing.
What is your greatest fear?
There's no real way around fear. I think fear will always creep up on us. But I think the most productive way to go about it is to act in spite of the fear. I acknowledge that I am fearful about a specific thing, but I act anyways, and I do what I want anyways. And by doing so, the fear dissipates, and then you get the result of what you want to do.
Anything else you would like to add for the people watching or hearing this?
I think just it's important to get quiet enough to hear our inner voice, and then also be able to discern the kind of pure inner voice rather than the anxious one, and develop more of a connection with that and flow with nature in doing so without lying, being honest. Personally, I took a vow of honesty. Hadi knows because we have a story about that. But I took a vow of honesty about like 3-4 years ago, and I decided not to lie, because when one lies, one misconstrued reality. So I think it's lying gets us off the ordained path, and when one is honest, one flows with the universe and is in harmony with oneself and with everything around him. Try to also avoid the white lie, the white lie, because that's a tool you can then apply to everything. Everything then becomes a white lie. I just avoid the question, or I just say that I choose not to answer, or something like that, rather than telling a white lie. But in passing conversations and things that don't really matter, it depends on how much you want to share with a person. So if you're not feeling well and someone asks you how are you, but you don't necessarily want to get in with them, you can say like, oh, it's going well, oh, it's okay, or whatever, and just allow that to pass. But when it comes to friendships, proper interactions with people, it's very important to be honest with oneself before being honest with others. The honesty starts with honesty with self, and then that translates to honesty with other people. But also honesty links very much to faith, yaqeen, iman, and having faith that your truth is the truth, is the way to live truthfully, and whatever comes out from that truth is what is meant for you, and what is meant for you is ordained by God, and we trust in God.
Beautiful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Hadi, for having me.
All right, that was awesome. That was
fantastic.
good. Yeah.